My name's Robert Hackett, and I'm an editor at A16Z Crypto, where we invest in and are building out the next evolution of the internet, which we call Web3. And today we're going to be talking about the next wave of mainstream NFT use cases. We've got a great panel with a number of excellent speakers here today. We have Whitney Steele from OpenSea. She's the head of marketing there. OpenSea, you might know, it rose to prominence over recent years with the NFT boom. We have Radhima Khan, who is the head of business development at Dapper Labs, a company that actually helped to define the technical specifications for NFTs back with its early project CryptoKitties, and is now probably best known for NBA Top Shots. And we have Michael Buhana, who is the head of, or the co-head of digital art sales at Sotheby's, the auction house, which you might be familiar with. And we're also joined remotely, actually, by Punk6529. Great to have you on the line, Punk6529. He is a Twitter anon, he is an internet philosopher, and he is a prolific NFT collector. That's about as much as I know about him. He could be a very sophisticated AI bot, for all I know. But I like to think that there is a man behind the mask.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
All right. Good. We've got everybody here then. So yeah, before we start the conversation, I figured we could level set and just ask the audience, how many people here own NFTs? Let's take a quick poll. There are a bunch of people. Okay. So there aren't too many novices in the crowd, but there are some holdouts out there. How many people are planning to purchase one within the end of the year? Or let's say by end of next year? Fewer, I would say, many fewer. Okay, cool. So that kind of gives us a read on the number of people who are sophisticated NFT holders out there. Let's dive in. So recently, there's been a lot of talk about the onset of a bear market in crypto. It sort of spilled over into NFTs as well. Volume of trading has diminished. Prices have come down. In this context, Whitney, maybe you could tell us, what is OpenSea doing? How is it thinking about this period of time, and how is it building toward the future?
Yeah, thanks. I think the way we look at this time is that it's just a huge opportunity in a lot of ways, which may sound counterintuitive given the sort of headlines out there right now. But I think what a lot of the headlines miss is how much this last wave unlocked a really sticky user who cares about this technology, sees the potential of NFTs, and is still in it with us. So we're not seeing users of NFTs, we're not seeing user growth decline in the same way we're seeing, ETH prices and overall volume, and in fact, transactions are leveling out at much, much higher sort of ongoing levels than before this bull run. So bull runs kind of really help us drive the adoption curve. They help, raise the profile of this technology, which we think is great. But in these sort of bear markets, we get to invest in the fundamentals and make sure that the next time the sort of cycle repeats, we are more equipped to meet that moment, and also that we've expanded the potential of this technology and who can use it, who can build on it. And so I think what OpenSea is really focused on in this time is how do we improve the sort of rails and primitives in the space? How do we invest in the infrastructure that's going to make this 10x easier next time that wave comes along? How can we invite more creators into the space, help people understand what's so powerful about this technology, and make it easier for them to build? So I think that's really how we see this moment, as just a huge opportunity, because we know that next wave is coming, and we're excited for what it brings with us, which is a lot of the previous talk.
6529, was that you trying to chime in?
No, I'm happy to.
Okay, please do.
So I both agree and also view it a little bit differently. The big picture for me is our world is going to become progressively more digitized. And in that world, we're going to have digital objects of many types. Some are going to be technical, some will be art, some of them will be metaverse spaces, metaverse land. And
It's a little hard to hear you,
Yeah.
6529. I'm wondering if the sound text could maybe boost your volume a little bit. I'll pass that.
am I cutting out? I'm hearing myself cut out.
Okay, that is much better.
Okay, let me try. Okay, let me do this one.
Fantastic.
So, what I was saying is, over the next decade, we will progressively digitize, right? And in that world, people will want to own digital objects. Now, those digital objects might be collectibles, they might be art, they might be metaverse land, they might be metaverse buildings, but they could be any intangible, right? Global intangibles are something in the range of $77 trillion. And this is now a generic technology that allows you to own, transport, compose intangibles on-chain and online. All NFTs today may be $10, $15 billion. We are, in terms of maturity, where Bitcoin was in 2012, 2013. So from my perspective, the market cycles in a way don't mean anything right now. I mean, we've gone through multiple market cycles in crypto. It's normal. It's what happens. We've been doing this for a decade. The question to ask is, how big is the addressable market? Well, in early Bitcoin days, we were looking at, how does it match to gold or M0 or M1? Here you're talking about an addressable market that's 8 times that size. And another question to ask is there a plausible alternative? Sure, the plausible alternative is all of your important digital objects are going to be owned by some big tech company. They'll be in the Facebook or Google or Apple database. And the type of person that I suspect is in this audience finds that somehow uncomfortable, somehow that digital self-sovereignty matters. It matters for money. It matters for smart contracts. And it is also going to matter for the arbitrary digital objects of your life. And so in this context, all we're doing now, these are super early days, right? The price of any particular NFT collection, the volume of any particular month, to me is close to completely irrelevant. The question is, do these technologies work for what I just described? I think they do, in which case we're just at the beginning of the beginning.
So 6529 and Whitney, I'm picking up from the both of you that you believe these markets are cyclical and that it would be unwise to look at the short term, rather you would want to take a look at the longer term. I'm wondering, everybody in the audience, how many people were active in the crypto community during the last downturn around 2018? Let's see. I'd say about half. How about the downturn before that? There have been like 5 downturns, I would say. Fewer. So it does seem like the adoption has been increasing over time. Mikhail, you are selling digital art at Sotheby's. You're at an old established institution that has been trying to grapple with Web3 and kind of pave a way into the future here. How have you been seeing the market shifting and how are you adapting to the new sort of context?
Yes, I think you're right. Like it changed a lot. Like the market is definitely smaller today with less buyers, lower prices. But in some way, I find it like way more organic, and it's always more healthy to, when selling NFTs or digital art, to be talking to collectors who are really appreciating the work behind, and that they really see a value in like holding these works long term, etc. So I really seen like a difference in terms of the audience we had last year comparing to this past month. And it's for us, I think, a time to continue bring up quality artists in the market and really like defend the fact that this is a new medium, a new technology that will probably create a new movement with it's the new group of artists, and it's progressively finding a very strong audience. And actually, during this bear market you mentioned, we've seen the museums coming in, and these are like really like showcasing that the moment they will start collecting NFTs for their permanent collection, it will stay there for many, many years, and it will be helped to educate their visitors to this new medium. So we could see the future generation in the 5-10 years being educated to art through these new works. So, and therefore it creates a demand. And so I think these are like the kind of signals that shows that maybe it's like it was very speculative, so we went to the bull market. There were some prices, I don't think they were in correlation with actually the career of the artist. But now it is a bit more in line with actually the quality of the works, the actual demand and offer. So for us, it's a bit, it's more healthy actually to navigate through this market.
Let me ask you this. How resistant is the traditional art world to these changes?
There have been different phases. Like the moment we introduced the NFTs with our first sale, we've done it with a very curated sale that was a kind of retrospective from the first NFT ever minted in 2014, and then showcasing all the different movements. We really wanted to, because we've seen like in the other NFT native marketplaces, there were probably a lack of curation, explanation, background on the artist, on their technique, the process, all the details that we offer when we present the work in our platform. And so we really try to counterbalance that and offer an educational platform to our clients. And it helped for our traditional collectors to understand the artistic value of certain artists. But then we were already at a point where the entry price was, and especially because we are focused on the high end of the market, it was very challenging to get them to enter into the NFT space at this price point. Sometimes it's like 500,000 in a few millions. So that's why when we started to introduce larger editions with we've been able to do it through the development of our backend new platform. It was great to actually onboard new traditional clients to NFTs with a very low-priced NFTs.
So it sounds like it's been a gradual process of bringing people on board. Ridima, let's talk a little bit about Dapper and the journey that the company has taken from the early days of actually trying to establish NFTs as a kind of internet primitive up to going after the sort of established sports trading card kind of market and bringing that online. Tell us a little bit about that journey and where you're headed next, especially in the context of this kind of wintry period we might be in now.
Yeah, so when we first started, we created a product called CryptoKitties. And along the way, throughout Dapper's company life, actually, we've really focused primarily on making blockchain accessible and comprehensible to a mainstream audience and onboarding that audience. So our goal is really to get billions of people on the blockchain. So with our products, you can essentially go in, buy a moment, which is the NFT for NBA Top Shot and our other products, for $5 or less, and you're part of this community and economy that exists. And so over this time period, we've actually seen that some of the biggest and most exciting projects have been built during what we're calling a crypto winter. But that's not really how we think about it. We actually think about it in terms of ensuring that we're adding utility for people that are participating in our ecosystem, the fact that we're able to create communities around whether it's specific teams or players you like, and then helping to engage players as well as their fans in a more direct relationship and relationships within one another. So you'll see athletes go and buy their friends' moments after a game. In some interviews we've actually heard, can you top shot that? They want it to be something that they can go purchase. Magic Johnson just bought one of his moments, which was very exciting. And so creating all of that utility so that at some point it doesn't even matter that it's an NFT or that it's on the blockchain. It's more about this collectible that you have that has utility, community, meaning, and value for the individual.
Are there any CryptoKitties holders out there? Anybody who got one early on? Okay, there's a few out there. How about NBA Top Shots? Any owners? More. Okay, yeah. Whitney, I'd like to know from you, what have been the most innovative NFT projects you've seen? Or maybe you could name kind of the single most interesting, innovative, pushing the limits kind of project that you're seeing out there.
I think one of the ones that jumps to mind, and there are so many, so it's a very hard question to ask. It's like, choosing
like who's your favorite child?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that one of, kind of jumping more to maybe the use case, then I'm going to sidestep your question, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think the types of projects I find really innovative right now are ones that sort of bridge this Web 2 to Web 3 gap. And I think we talk a lot about how use cases early on need to be more skeuomorphic. And I think Dapper has kind of caught onto this with the sort of NBA Top Shots motion that builds upon this understandable concept of a collectible or a...
You used the term skeuomorphic. Maybe just define it in case anybody isn't familiar.
Yeah, sort of new use cases that that repeat or build on existing and understandable use cases in the world that imitate the original thing. So the sort of early, I think skeuomorphic got a lot of adoption. People were talking about Apple products early on and how the iconography for Apple, like a notepad, looks like a real world notepad, even though in 30 years maybe no one uses real world notepads anymore, and you can kind of innovate on what that iconography is because you don't need that connection back to the real world. I think right now, a lot of the use cases that I find really interesting and powerful are the ones that connect these two worlds in ways that help more people understand the power of this technology. So agree with 6529 on where this is all headed, and I get really excited about things that feel further off, like sort of reversing the paradigm of how we spend our time online right now, where right now you really have to lead with your identity and then follow with your interests, and an internet where we can all kind of decide how much of our identity we want to share and to some degree choose the identity we want to bring to a situation and own all of our own interests and identity online. I mean, I think that's really powerful. I think what's interesting today, sort of shorter term and easier to kind of grab hold of, are projects, companies like Courtyard that is working on a concept of connected collectibles. Also, I get such a kick out of everyone trying to rebrand NFTs because nobody wants to use the word NFTs, but like connected collectibles where you can take all of your trading cards, all of your collectibles, you can put them in a Brinks vault, you can have an NFT of them, and it creates a much more sort of liquid economy for these tradables, collectibles, that already have sort of a rich history behind them and people really understand, can grab hold of, but shows the power of having those in your digital wallet. You can show them to your friends while also having them listed on a marketplace. You can buy and sell them without ever burning your NFT and grabbing that physical item back. So no shipping, sort of P2P. You can create these really interesting and different and broader economies than we've seen today for those types of real world objects. So I think that's pretty exciting because I think it brings more people in, helps people understand the power, all pushing us towards this sort of new internet where the identity paradigm is reversed. Allow me to make that jump.
Yeah. I want to drill down a little bit on this kind of vision you've laid out. I'd like to know more, how does this benefit consumers and creators? Because to get them on board with this kind of picture you're painting, it's going to have some sort of like upside for them. What are the benefits to people to this new sort of paradigm you're laying out?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a really real sense, we've kind of led with the wrong thing in the first version of the internet of, I feel like everyone online has my social security number. I don't know if that's true, but I sort of like feel that way. That's a world in which you feel very exposed, I think, and that's not actually what matters. As a former like reformed performance marketer, I don't actually care about your social security number. What I want is like, what are you interested in, so I can deliver you ads that make sense to you, that are relevant, that are actually helpful, that move you forward in some way. And I think, and sorry to anyone I offended by admitting my association with digital marketing, but I do think like there's this world where we can control our data, surface what's important to us, and sort of share our identity without having to share all this stuff that makes you feel really vulnerable when you're spending time online. And I think that being able to have that sort of shield and be able to protect what matters to you online is going to be a completely different world to live in. Like, I hope for that world for my kids. So I think that's what's important to consumers. What's important to creators is being able to see all those people who are moved by what you're creating and bringing into the world and connect with that audience really authentically without gatekeepers. I think that's a meme that's out there. People talk about this without gatekeepers thing, but I think fundamentally what's really interesting about that is creators can see that, I'm a Starbucks loyalty club member, and perhaps there's some aspect of their project where that really makes sense. That makes me more likely to want to get involved with their project, and so they can reach out to me as like having clearly an interest that is shared in a sort of the way that we orchestrate digital ads today, but more directly, because that's all on chain. They don't need to go through some gatekeeper to understand that about me. They can just see that. They can see that that's true of my wallet. And so you have this really interesting sort of like composable fandoms, composable loyalty, people bootstrapping off of each other's work in a really organic way that I think just like expands the canvas for creativity and fandom in a really powerful way.
It sounds like it enables a further personalization for people because they're actually opting in and target, like they're...
Yeah, personalization without creepiness. And like if we do want to deliver ads, then like we should pay people to receive ads and you know, pay them directly rather than having some middle person hold my identity and facilitate that payment and take a cut of it. That just seems, it seems like I've increased my risk as a user by giving them my identity, which they now have to keep safe, and I have to trust them to do that, and also enrich them along the way. And to what end? Like I haven't benefited from that except that I have a more relevant ad. So, you know, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's an interesting change.
When you put it like that, like compensating people and, you know, instead of just, you know, making it creepy and blasting them with ads.
I don't think ads are creepy. I'm
for...
here for personalized ads. I just don't want you to have my social security number to deliver it to me.
It sounds like a logical, positive vision, but it is a sort of complete overturning of the paradigm of the internet as it exists today.
Yeah. That's why it takes time.
Yeah.
That's why it's cyclical. I think it's like, there's going to be discomfort with something that is such a huge shift. And I think, I mean, I'm sure Dapper has a lot to say about this, but I think the wallet is a huge piece of that as well that can't be missed in this conversation, which is my identity doesn't have to be me as a human. My identity can be multiple wallets that can have different interests, and that's also a form of protection, and I think an abstraction that is interesting.
Yeah.
I've talked way too much.
No, totally agree. I totally agree with that. I think that the wallet is a really big piece of it, and making the wallet sort of a really seamless transaction. Security is really important as well. And being able to share, you know, what's in your wallet without necessarily sharing your full identity is really important. A lot of brands will come to us and say, we want to ask X, Y, and Z question at login and get more data on users, but we kind of shy away from that. We want to make sure that the first experience you have is really seamless. You can sort of get into the ecosystem, and then any data or information you provide is information you are choosing to share, and you're choosing to share it because there's some benefit to you. So if you're going to share your birthday, we're going to ask you that way later when we'll actually give you something on your birthday, for example, or you know, just adding utility sort of at every stage versus just blindly giving it away. And the Dapper wallet is something that we've certainly heavily invested in for quite some time, and I think we'll continue to do that.
Excellent. 6529. Help us also to articulate the benefits to consumers and creators here. I feel like a lot of people who are entering this Web3 world, they might you know, be put off by some of the wonkiness of the terms. You've got multiple competing blockchains. You've got acronyms like NFTs. You've got all these cartoon pictures. What are the actual benefits that you can articulate for why people should be excited about all of this? You still there, 6529, or are you muted? All right, I think we've lost you.
Someone muted me. For me, it starts with the same fundamental concept. Is it appropriate in the digital world to own things? Or should you just be a user of someone's web service? Right? This is uncontroversial in the physical world. Right? If you asked in the physical world, can you articulate why someone might want to own a painting? It's a weird question, right? But in the digital world, the only way you can actually own a painting is by owning an NFT, right? In the Web2 social media companies, you're a user, you're underneath the terms of service license, you can be bumped at any time, you have literally zero rights to be there, right? Like, you have the feeling that it might be yours. I have the feeling that my Twitter profile is mine, but it's not mine. Nothing there is mine, right? I'm a guest in someone's house. And one thing that I think people struggle with is, well, is the digital world real? Well, it seems like it to me. I spend most of my day looking at a screen, and most every white-collar professional I know spends most of their day looking at a screen, right? We're already looking at a screen. And if you look forward, what's going to happen? The visualization is going to get better and better. I'm seeing you guys in real-time video conferencing, and it's great. But in 10 years, this will be an augmented reality, and we'll all be sitting there, even though none of us might be there, right? And that transition is going to be 3D in the browser, then some augmented reality, some virtual reality, and eventually you'll just live in a world where the screen today is still a bit of a bug, not a feature. eventually your physical life and your digital life will be integrated. We'll mention a Fidenza, it will float in front of us. Someone will mention a new bag that they own, it will float in front of us. And in that world, to me, the simplest question is, does it make sense to own something, right? Would you like to own things? People, my view is people like to own things. They like to own homes, they like to own cars, they like to own paintings, they like to own watches, clothes, art, all types of things. And I think we're gonna look back at this phase in history as maybe a weird 10 to 20 year phase where there was a massive part of the global economy, like the digital economy is massive, and nobody owned anything, right? It was just a guest in 10 tech companies' home. And so I think it's all the things that everyone said, right? Like, yes, there'll be great art that museums will have. Yes, it will replace your loyalty card. Yes, you'll donate to your community, religious group, and it will be some mark that you have been part of it. It'll be community identity, brands. All of that's going to happen, but that's not exactly why you should use an NFT, right? You can do all of that in a database. The reason that it might make sense to use it in an NFT is that you can actually own it.
So what you've laid out here is that there's been this melding and merging of the physical and digital world, and we're undergoing this transition right now where more of our lives are being spent online. How many people spend more time online today than they did 2 years ago? Raise your hand if you're spending more time online. I certainly am with now remote work and Zoom meetings and all that. 6529, tell us what needs to change, what sort of advancements need to happen from a technological perspective to kind of bring about this shift that you have depicted for us?
I think the biggest issue is not technological, it's the front end. The front end is actively terrible in the crypto industry. We're a decade in, and it continues to be, for a normal person, borderline unusable. I yell at most of the CTOs or CEOs of the NFT industry on a regular basis. I am a hugely sophisticated user, and I don't know, if I'm transferring an NFT on OpenSea, I still find the process terrifying, right? Like, what could go wrong? What could put the wrong address, right? I'm picking on you because you're there, right? It's no different than any other crypto service. They're all like this. And
we'll give Whitney a chance to respond after.
But I think because crypto tends to attract highly technical people, and because highly technical people can get up these types of learning curves by themselves, you're like, look, it's fine. It's obviously I had to take a Trezor and put it in Trezor Suite and connect it to MetaMask and check it on Etherscan and do these type of things. But this is not normal, right? Like, this is our major weak point. Everyone that gets up the curve and owns an NFT and transfers it to a friend and gets it back thinks it's magical, right? So what we now need to do is make the front end usable, make it easier, and you can keep the back end permissionless. We don't want to censor people, but you can actually use software on the front end to say simple things. Hey, you've never transferred to this wallet before. Are you sure you want to do it? These small affordances to the user is something that we do not as a field do right now. It's kind of like what car companies used to say, well, you had an accident, it's your fault. And then there was a shift in logic that, no, maybe we should put anti-lock brakes and seat belts and airbags because people make mistakes, they're human, and it's actually the manufacturer's responsibility that people don't die in a car accident. So I think this is the single most important thing we can do to help adoption.
Excellent. Well, Whitney, I want to give you a chance to respond. 6529 thinks that the state of Web3 front ends is lackluster. Yeah, so.
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that OpenSea is getting better like week over week right now on the front end. One of the joys of being in winter has been watching the team build and deliver, and they really have. So if you haven't used it in a while, come check it out. I think that they're doing an incredible job, and I think it's coming along. That said, I couldn't agree more with 6529 on OpenSea across the entire ecosystem right now. I think the front ends are lagging. Certainly the broad interest, and I think it leads to a lot of the press that we all see around this. I think this, within the Web3 community, I think there's a constant refrain of it's still early, and I think we all really feel that. But we've gotten a lot of attention in the last year. There's been this really bright light shone on that, and I think one of the things it's highlighted is how much of a challenge we still have ahead of us in terms of building really intuitive UIs for the space. I would argue the place that I think we need to spend the most time right now to make this much easier for users and creators to get involved is on the wallets. I think the wallets, like that is, I think the thing I see people struggle. I would be curious what the audience thinks. That's the piece of friction I see people struggle the most with right now is getting their wallet, getting it set up, getting it funded, making their first purchase, of course, but like it's a really different way of doing things on the internet than has existed before. And I think I'm really hopeful in this, time of building that we can all really invest in that surface and make it significantly easier for users to get involved that way.
Radima, what would you have to add to this? 6529 says that front ends and user experience is not up to par. What's your view on that, and what is Dapper doing to kind of push things forward?
Yeah, so I agree generally, however, and obviously I'm biased, but I think Dapper actually does a really good job with that because you basically just enter your email address. You don't have to go through anything other than signing up with that. And so I think but to add on to Winnie's point, I do think that there are different types of people using wallets right now. There's the crypto native people using wallets. There's, I think gaming has an entirely different set of needs when it comes to a wallet, same with creators. And so what I think I'd like to see more mainstream is that kind of adoption, and then, features that are tailored to each of those different audiences. You're starting to see companies, come out with notifications and so forth that are headed in that direction, which I think is really promising. But that's the reason that we had initially built CryptoKitties on Ethereum and then eventually shifted over to creating our own blockchain, which initially we didn't necessarily want to do. We wanted to find a chain that worked, but because of all the hurdles, we ended up building Flow, and Flow makes it, and the Dapper wallet as well. So we built these components of our business that we think made it easier to reach our goal of reaching billions of people, because we'd realized that some people would lose the keys to their wallet and they could no longer access their CryptoKitties, and they were very, very upset about that. And so we decided to shift away from Ethereum, and I do believe in a multi-chain world going forward, but at this stage, given where the industry is right now, I think it's really important to make everything very accessible, and that's really what we've optimized for.
I do want to say one thing about 6529's point, which is I think you asked the question, which is what does it take to make his first point a reality about this, how hard it is to exist in digital spaces right now, how sort of bad a lot of these tools are. I think there's another piece to that, which is this future that I think he's done a great job of articulating, where we're all going to be spending a lot more time digitally, which sounds terrible today because it's so hard to spend your time digitally today, is when we have much better sort of technology for existing in digital space, I guess, haptics and just much better rendering of what digital space is going to be. I'm sort of dancing around when we're all in the metaverse, because I think that's kind of a throwaway, but when we get more to that immersive digital experience, I think it's going to be so obvious why this is necessary. And so we are in this sort of liminal period where we should improve the UIs as they exist today on desktop and mobile and everywhere, on these devices that we use to connect to digital space. But also that paradigm is going to shift at the same time, and it's just going to, I think, make this all the more obvious. So there's sort of two sets of technology that need to evolve in parallel here.
I'd like to project ahead. So let's assume that these advancements are made and we end up living in a world where a lot more people are using Web3 technology. The wallets are better. There are more bespoke blockchains that people can use for specific purposes. Michael, I'm wondering, in that world, how does Sotheby's strategy change with many more people using Web3? Because you tend to go after the high-end clients, the people with big bucks who can spend money on.
No, I think there is also an application of the NFT in our traditional business with how we can use the NFT in the supply chain with the sales of physical goods. And we have a big problem. One of the issues with physical works, and working sometimes with estates and dead artists is like authentication, traceability, and provenance. And we see the NFC and its technology being a solution to it. So we don't know what form it will take, like who should be the one like building it. I feel like it's something that should be a consensus between all the big actors in the art market, the galleries, the museum, the estates, the auction houses, to brainstorm together how we can use the blockchain technology and make sure that, I can give you an example, like with the work of by Chagall, for example, or Picasso. When we receive it for sale to put it at auction, we need to authenticate it, and the process is that we need to send it to the estate. We need to send the physical painting to the estate so they authenticate it, and then it goes back to Sotheby's. It requires some shipment, it requires some crates to be created, and then we sell it. If it comes back 2 years after, we have to redo this process. So it looks a bit archaic that we have still this process, but it's like the most efficient way to guarantee our clients that they are buying something authentic, and that's why like clients are coming at Sotheby's. But with the NFT, we feel there could be like a way more efficient way to process all this type of authentication.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a very high friction process, this life cycle of acquiring, listing, selling, authenticating all of these pieces of art. I'm wondering, given the context of this conversation, do you believe will digital art eclipse physical art?
No, in terms of, no, I wouldn't say in terms of market, no. Like last year, we achieved 7 billion gross sales, and we've done 120 million in NFTs and digital art. So it's a 100% growth because we started this the 8 months before. So it's still like a new market that opened to us. A department, we had to build a new department, hire some specialists, and interact with this new audience, this new way of marketing, of bringing to the market works. So it's it's incredible, like to have a room in this new market and to be able to interact with it. But I don't think it will eclipse the physical art market at all.
I have a feeling 6529 might have an opinion on this, so I want to shift it to him. But also, we have 5 minutes left, and I'm going to have another question to wrap up with all the panelists. But 6529, I feel like you might have a counterpoint to share on the digital versus physical divide.
Look, I think it's all going to be one of these like definitional arguments between internet businesses and pre-internet businesses, right? That the NFT market is going to have a relatively small amount of NFTs that are the types of things that the traditional art market would say, oh, look, this is a super established artist who is in this museum. And that market size is going to be about the type of market size of people who spend millions of dollars on a piece of art, right? But you're also going to have vastly more artists with direct access to collectors in a vastly more liquid way to trade art. So if you look at overall volumes in NFTs, overall volumes in NFTs are going to obviously swamp volumes in physical art, right? Because it's so much easier to trade. I have some pretty nice physical art in my house, but trading them is a long process, as was mentioned. If I wanted to trade an NFT, it would take me about 30 seconds. I'll go on OpenSea and you can have liquidity. So it all depends on what metric you look like. I'll be very surprised if volume in trading of digital objects, art, collectible, however you want to look at it, isn't multiples of trading volume of the fine art market fairly soon. But also, the very, very elite end of the fine art market is not going to be, it's not technology constrained, right? It's buyer constrained. So there, I think the traditional perspective's right. Like, I mean, there's only so many people who are buying 7 and 8 and 9 digit pieces of art. And so there it'll be a little bit more traditional, I think, in nature.
So as access opens up, the market opportunity is much greater, you're saying. Let's poll our audience. How many people think that digital art will eventually eclipse physical art? Okay. Yeah, I'd say it's an even split. People are undecided, so we've got people on both sides of the fence here. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I realize we should have probably touched on use cases a little bit more. So let's have each panelist in 60 seconds or less just put forward what they think is the most exciting NFT use case that people don't typically associate with an NFT. I mean, people think of art typically, they think of profile pictures. Give us succinctly what is the most exciting new use case you think is going to push NFTs into the mainstream moving forward. We'll start with Michal.
I think it's the evolution of how we can enjoy actually the NFT once we bought it. Like I sold once like an NFT to a traditional collector. It was the first NFT of this collector, and she called me the next day and she asked me what should I do with it, and that's a question we never had when selling like traditional works, and it's obvious when you have a painting, you hang it on a wall and you're happy to collect it. But I think there is some room for improvement in terms of how to display the NFT, how to enjoy it, how to experience it, to show it to friends. And this will come when we see like all the major brands working on this topic now that the demand is increasing. So I wouldn't be surprised that there are more collectors like buying in order to really like display their works at home, and it will become closer, like the behavior of the collectors will become closer to fine art.
Excellent. Okay, so more things to do with the NFTs so that people have clearer guidance on kind of their utility. Redeema, let's hear from you. Most exciting NFT use case that's on the horizon.
I'm super excited about creators and NFTs, and I think they'll sort of be like loyalty clubs or fan clubs, or just a more engaging way for creators to do what they love. And as we were talking about earlier, have more transparency into their audience, and I'm really excited about that. I also agree that display and being able to blend your physical and digital worlds, Meta's already starting to do stuff like that. Our partnership there allows you to share your NFTs as a separate tab on your Instagram profile. So I think things like that will continue to add value for the industry.
All right, improvements to fandom and the creator economy.
I'm so bummed because you took mine.
Oh no.
I'm really gonna say
Lots of exciting
fandom use cases, but I think as a quick flip, I would also say just I think one of the things that's gonna make this really real for people is better economies for in-game items in gaming. I think it's like one that's getting a lot of traction right now, and setting aside composability and taking items across games, I just think creating much more liquid internal economies in games is a really exciting thing that's gonna make it real for people.
Excellent. Okay, so the gaming opportunity. 6529, take us home. What's the most exciting NFT use case that you see? We've got less than 20 seconds, so make it tight if you can.
I think how people make their own digital spaces is a thing we're spending a ton of time on, and how they can do that in a self-sovereign manner. It's a very, very difficult problem. Hopefully we'll make progress on it this year.
Excellent. Okay, so ways to express yourself, it sounds, in different digital environments, digital and hybrid physical. One last question for you, 6529. What would it take for you to part with your punk?
That's not going to happen.
Well, everything's got a price, right?
No, look, the mention about museums, I mean, the principle behind the 6529 museum is that the NFT space also needs what the traditional world has, a place where art is bought and it's not bought to be traded. It has a permanent home. And that's the logic for the things that I've been buying, and it's not because I'm waiting to do another trade in 6 or 12 or 18 months. Once they go in, they're not coming out.
Excellent. Okay, well, couldn't have summarized it better myself. Thank you all for joining. Thanks to my panelists. It's been an excellent discussion. Hope you all got something from it.